Hello my dear friends and my dear students, Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. Friends, we are discussing about the structure of the human eye. In the previous lecture, I have discussed about the structure of the choroid, right? So we have discussed it in a big detail in the previous lecture. Now let me introduce a little bit that we have discussed about the anatomy of eye, right? We have introduced the eye, what is eye and what are the important markings of the eye. Then I discussed about the structure of cornea that you can see on the whiteboard, and detail we have discussed. And then we discussed about the structure of sclera in detail. You can see here I have drawn everything. So we have discussed sclera, and in the last lecture we have discussed about the uveal tract, right? Uveal tract. And in the uveal tract, we know that uveal tract has three important parts, right? The uvea, or we can see the choroid, right? And the ciliary body and iris. So uveal tract is divided into these three parts: the choroid, the ciliary body and the iris. And I have discussed the choroid along with these important structures of the eye. Now we are discussing about the ciliary body, that what is ciliary body and how is it organized, right? So let us discuss about ciliary body. First of all, let me introduce that where exactly ciliary body is present. Let me draw a very simplified diagram here. For example, my dear friends, this is our eyeball, right? And you know that this black layer shows the sclera, and this is your cornea. We have discussed it. Now we had said that the eye is composed of three layers or three coats. The outer fibrous and protective layer is called the sclera. So let me name it here. This is your sclera, right? And this is our cornea. Okay, then inner to the sclera we have a vascular layer, and that vascular layer is called your uveal tract, right? And in the uveal tract, you know that we have three important points, right? This is our uveal tract. Now let me complete it. First of all, this one, this red color, as you can see, right? This is called the choroid. Let me name it. This is choroid. Right, and when this choroid moves anteriorly, it makes a triangular shape part, right? It makes a triangular shape part, and this triangular shape part of the uveal tract is called the ciliary body. So we say this is our ciliary body. Done. And when the ciliary body moves further anteriorly, it becomes narrower, and then makes a structure like this, and this structure is your iris. So this was a very brief introduction of the uveal tract. So uveal tract is composed of choroid, the ciliary body and the iris. Now I have discussed this layer. Let us discuss ciliary body. So what is ciliary body? First of all, look, the choroid is narrow, right, and posterior part of uveal tract, and the ciliary body is the anterior triangular, right, anterior triangular, and we say the choroidal layer becomes thickened, it becomes a little bit thicker. So that thicker anterior triangular part of the uveal tract is called ciliary body. So let me write it here: the anterior thickened, right, anterior thickened and triangular part of which layer? Uveal tract. Uveal tract of the eye is called your ciliary body. Done. This is the definition of it. Now we further move forward and see I'm sorry, and see other structures regarding it. From where does it begins? It begins at which point? Look carefully, my dear friends. Here it has begun at this point and at this point. So we should write the exact point where the ciliary body begins and where does it ends, right? So this is the beginning part and this is the end part. So we say that this ciliary body begins at the ora serrata and ends at the base of the iris, right? I will show what is ora serrata, right? So it begins at ora serrata or serrata, right? And ends at where? Ends at the base of the basal part of iris, isn't it? Look carefully. Here it begins, this triangular part begins, and here it ends. So we say it begins at the ora serrata. So here is our ora serrata. Now let me, or a little time after, I will show you the ora serrata. Remind this part, we will discuss it later, right? So this is the beginning part and this is the end part, right? Now it has two surfaces, right? One surface is in contact with your sclera and one surface is in contact with your vitreous body. So here is your vitreous chamber or vitreal body, right? So this surface of this ciliary body is in contact with the vitreous body and this outer surface is in contact with your sclera. So we say that it has two surfaces, right? What are those surfaces? The first and the outer surface. Outer surface is called the scleral surface, right? And the inner surface is called the vitreal surface. Vitreal surface. Done. Then it has two bases, right? It has two bases. That's so simple, friends. The first one, look carefully, the long basis and the short base, right? The iris is like this. I'm sorry, ciliary body is like this, right? So it has two long bases and one short base. So we say that here we write that it has two long bases, the outer and inner, and one short base which is in contact with the iris. So this is the short base, right? And these are the two long bases. Okay, friend, these are about the bases. Now the beginning point and the most important structures we have said that. Now let me draw a very simplified diagram of this ciliary body and see some important structures within the ciliary body. Let's draw it. Look here. Let me take this part, right? This ciliary body, and draw it here. We will see the very important landmarks of the ciliary body. Look carefully. Right, this is the scleral surface or the outer surface, and this is the short base, isn't it? This area represents the short base, as I have said, and this is the inner long base, right? Like this. This will be the inner long base. Now look carefully. The inner long base or the inner surface, 1/3 part of the inner surface have these mountainous outer growths or outer projections, right? And these outer projections are called the ciliary processes, right? Like this. So this is your ciliary body. Now let's see in a big detail what are the structures inside this ciliary body. So that will be so important for us to discuss this ciliary body. Look carefully. Here is the continuation of what? Here will be the continuation of your iris. So this is our iris. Done. And we will see the structure of and the detail of iris in coming next lectures. Okay friends, look carefully. Here is your iris, a ciliary body. Now look, behind that, behind this ciliary body, right, posterior to it, what is there? That is your choroidal layer. So this will be, this narrow part is our choroidal layer, right? So look carefully, this is our choroid. Done. And this is our ciliary body and this is our iris. So we have drawn it a little bit larger. Now look carefully. The interior 1/3 part of this ciliary body, this part, has these plications, right? These outgrowths, and these are called the ciliary processes, right? These are called what? These are the ciliary processes, right? Let me write their name, ciliary processes. And this part, this interior 1/3 part of the ciliary body, right, which has these plications, which has these ciliary processes, this part is called the pars plicata, right? So what is this? This is pars plicata, right? And this posterior, right, this posterior part which has no plications, which has no ciliary processes, this part is called the pars plana, right? As it is plane, so we say this is called pars plana, and this is called, this structure has plications, that's why we say that this is called pars plicata. Done. Then look carefully, here will be the eye lens located, right? So what is this? This is lens of the eye, right? Now the lens is suspended by special type of ligaments which are called the suspensory ligaments, and these projections in between the two projections, these inner areas of these two projections will support all those ligaments which come from lens, right? So these are called your suspensory ligaments, and these suspensory ligaments are controlled by, or we say that these suspensory ligaments are held by these ciliary processes. So right, so the ciliary processes, or we say this ciliary body provides the attachment for what? For suspensory ligaments, right? And these ligaments keeps the lens suspended within the eye. So if we draw this structure here, that will be very easy for us. Look, this is your lens, right? And the lens is suspended by these suspensory ligaments, and all those suspensory ligaments are held by what? Are held by suspensory ligaments, and these suspensory ligaments are controlled by, or held by, or firmly held by ciliary body. So look here, that structure is represented also here, right? So the pars plicata, the most important functions of the pars plicata is what? They hold the lens through suspensory ligaments, and another function of the pars plicata is, very importantly, we should know that it has a very special epithelium, and that epithelium is responsible to secrete the aqueous humor which goes to the anterior chamber of the eye. So we should watch that here. Look carefully. Let me draw that structure also here. So these are the striations, plications, these are the plications, and these plications have some important epithelium, and those epitheliums are responsible to do what? They are responsible to secrete or to synthesize. They are responsible to synthesize and secrete the aqueous humor. So they secrete the aqueous humor into the posterior chamber, and then they move through the pupil. These aqueous humor or aqueous fluids move to the anterior chamber, and they are nourishing the posterior part of the cornea and other things. So these we say that these plications, right? And these plications first of all support the lens, and then they have I told you that they have some important epithelium, and these epithelial cells take nutrition from inside of this ciliary body, and these epithelial cells secrete what? They secrete the aqueous humor or the aqueous fluids into the posterior. So this is your lens, and here will be your cornea. So this will be your cornea. Look, the diagram is complete now, right? So these cells are responsible to do what? I told you that they synthesize and secrete what? Aqueous humor or aqueous fluid into the posterior chamber, right? In front of the lens and posterior to the iris. This is your iris, and then this fluid move through the pupil, right, to the anterior chamber of the eye like this, and they help to nourish the cornea, and they help to hold the eye structure or the shape of the eye properly, right? Done. So this is your pars plana and this is your pars plicata. Done. Now let's go further forward. You can see here, this is our third layer, right? This is the third layer of the eye, and this third layer of the eye, as you all know, that this is the retina, right? What is this? This is our retina. So we know that the retina itself is composed of how many layers? 3 layers. We will see those layers in the next coming lectures. Now listen to me carefully. For example, if I take a piece of the eye from here, right? So I have taken the choroid and the retina and draw it here. So this is our that part of the choroid, right? And then there will be above the choroid, there will be the retinal pigment epithelium, right? And then there will be the rods and cones, and then there will be the your retinal or neural cells. These will be discussed in big detail in the next coming lectures, right? So these 3 layers are the layers of the retina. What are these? These are pigment, retinal pigment epithelium, right? And these are the rods and cones. Done. And this is the we say the neural layer of retina or neural component. So retina is composed of how many components? The 3 important components. Now if we take a look of this structure here, then you can see here the retina, right? So the retina will have what? This will be the pigment epithelium of the retina, right? So this is the pigment epithelium of the retina. Then we have the rods and cones. For example, I will draw them rounded in structure, rods and cones. These are special type of cells which detect the colors, right? Rods and cones. And then there are some cells of what? Cells of the neural part of the retina, which we will discuss later, inshallah, right? Like this. Now look, this is the part of the retina. Now we see that, look, now we see that here this pigment epithelium of the retina continues forward over the pars plana, right? It continues forward over the pars plana and then over the pars plicata also, right, like this, pars plicata, and then it goes further forward and forward. This is the retinal pigment epithelium, and then it comes forward over the base, the short base of the ciliary body, and then to the posterior part of the iris also, and then goes it little bit anteriorly. Then we will see it in the while we discuss about the structure of the iris. So this is your retinal pigment epithelium, which moves over the pars plana or the pars plicata, the basal part, and the posterior part of the iris also. So this retinal pigment epithelium will continue like that. And then what happens, look carefully, what is this layer? This is the rods plus cones layer, right? So this rods and cones layer will terminate here. They will not go further forward, right? What will go forward? Look, let me draw one cell more also. This is your neural layer, right? Neural layer, right? So this neural layer will continue further forward along with the retinal pigment epithelium. So this is the neural layer of the pars plana, then towards the pars plicata, and like this it will go further forward, and like this it will be on the posterior side, right, and like this. So we say that what we see here, we see that the two layers which are the part of the retina, two of them will continue further forward to up to the iris, right? So look here, what has been vanished and is not going further forward, the rods and cones layer of the retina will stop here, and the outer and inner layer of the retina will continue further forward on the posterior part or on the vitreal surface of the ciliary body, and they will continue further down towards the iris, right? So we see that the posterior surface or the vitreal surface of the ciliary body is covered by a double epithelium, right? And that double epithelium is actually the epithelium of the retina which comes forward, right? So what is that? That is the retinal pigment epithelium, and the neural layer of the retina comes and go there, right? Okay, so you can see here what has not gone forward, the rods and cone layer. So the rods and cone layer will stop here, and then will be the continuation of the retinal pigment and neural layer. So this point, look, this point where the rods and cones will stop and will not go further forward, this exact point is called the ora serrata, right? So what is this? This is your ora serrata. As I had told you in the beginning of this lecture, that ciliary body begins at which point? The ora serrata. Now you know what is ora serrata. Ora serrata is the point where the rods and cone layer or the middle layer of the retina will stop, and the two outer and inner more layer will go further forward. So that point where the rods and cones layer of the retina stop and don't go further forward, that point is called ora serrata. And you can see here, this is the beginning point of your ciliary body. So you can see ciliary body begins at the ora serrata and moves forward. Done.